Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll give it a minute while people join us. We want to make sure folks end up at the right place, at the right link. We are so excited for this conversation and the number of people who signed up to be here. We know this is going to be a great session. My name is Courtney. I work with Global Girls Glow. I will be helping kind of walk through some of our Zoom housekeeping and introducing a little bit about our organization before we start. It is so nice to see so many familiar names in this group today. Feel free as you're joining us to drop a hello in the chat. Let everybody know where you're joining from. We're going to be using the chat and the Q&A feature tonight, and I'll walk that through. But general rule of thumb, anytime you want to celebrate or encourage our wonderful presenters today, please share that in the chat. Anytime you have a question for them, please share that in the Zoom Q&A instead. We know that it's actually a really big group today, so we're not going to be able to keep our eyes on both of those. So the chat is kind of for you to talk to each other, and the Q&A is for you to interact with our presenters. Again, my name is Courtney. I am the very, very lucky Vice President of Engagement and Communications at Global Girls Glow. My absolutely favorite part of my job is getting to share examples of girls who are leaders in our programs. So I couldn't be more excited about today's session. This is truly going to be an amazing opportunity to hear about the girls who are bringing projects to life in their communities. So again, just the housekeeping things to keep track of, as I mentioned. Use the chat if you have any encouraging words for our presenters, if you want to connect with your fellow attendees. Thank you in advance for keeping everything in the chat positive and celebratory. And if you have questions for the girls, please use the Q&A box. You'll find this at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Again, with so many of us joining today, we know we may not get to every question, but we would love to answer as many as possible. So we'll be looking for those questions there in that Q&A box. I know you are really eager to hear from Samhita and Isabella about the advocacy projects that they have brought to life this year as part of the Youth Visionary Lab, a pilot program of Global Girls Glow. But before we hear from these incredible girls, I would love to introduce you all to Global Girls Glow. This way you understand the global network of changemakers that Isabella and Samhita are now part of. At Global Girls Glow, we mentor girls to become powerful advocates and confident leaders. We do this in over 30 countries around the world, including in the United States. In our signature program, Glow Club, local leaders serve as mentors and provide a safe space for girls to develop their confidence, practice using their voice, and to build lasting relationships with peers, and to learn to advocate for themselves and for others. In addition to Glow Clubs, we support the design and implementation of advocacy projects around the world. Glow Girls are addressing issues in their communities from everything including child marriage, gender-based violence, economic vulnerability, menstrual equity, and more. And now Isabella and Samhita have joined this incredible movement. The Youth Visionary Lab was piloted to address a clear gap: the need for more structured opportunities for high school girls in the U.S. to address the problems they see in their own communities. Over the course of 10 months, the program gave 3 girls the resources to turn an idea for community change into an actual funded project. So rather than just learning the theory of advocacy, our participants received direct training, mentorship, hands-on experience, managed a real budget of up to $5,000 to execute their plans. Because of the level of funding and mentorship provided, the selection process was very rigorous. When we opened recruitment last year, 27 girls applied from across the country and only 3 were accepted. Today, you're going to hear from 2 of them about the projects they designed and implemented over the course of this school year. So I'm thrilled to turn things over now to Laura Dell, our U.S. Program Manager at Global Girls Glow, who had the pleasure of working directly with Isabella and Samhita and supporting their projects for the last 10 months. Thank you, Laura.
Hi, everyone. As Courtney mentioned, I had the pleasure of working with Isabella and Samhita and one other participant as they worked to design and implement their incredible projects. Today, Isabella and Samhita will each give a presentation to walk you through their advocacy projects. We'll also have a short window for Q&A with each girl. As Courtney mentioned, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen if you have questions for the girls. and feel free to share any encouraging comments in the chat. I'm excited to now introduce our first speaker. Samhita is a 16-year-old high school rising junior from Minnesota and an active member of the Minnesota Youth Council. Over the past 10 months, she's been working at the intersection of technology and community impact. Building on an earlier project, Spark Civics, an app designed to help young people find leadership opportunities, she joined the Youth Visionary Lab to scale this vision into a broader focus on civic innovation. Through after-school programs, community forums, and now specialized toolkits and workshops, she's actively expanding her reach to youth who lack access to these resources. Today, she's using both technology and grassroots outreach to empower the next generation of leaders. Please welcome Samhita.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Samhita, and I'm part of the Youth Visionary Lab. My initiative is called Spark Civics. I'm the founder and CEO of this organization. But before I go in too depth into Spark Civics, I'd first like to sincerely thank both Laura and the entire Global Girls Glow team for supporting me throughout my journey. I can't imagine how many hours Laura spent and put towards mentoring me, towards meeting with me. So thank you so much, Laura, for helping me throughout this journey. And it's been great to work with Isabella as well and getting to know her. So thank you so much for this opportunity and platform. Now, before I get into what exactly is Spark Civics, I'd really like to share a bit about the story behind why I started it. And, a lot of people ask me, why did you start Spark Civics? And honestly, it wasn't because I just woke up one day with this entire vision of starting a nonprofit organization. It actually started with an unexpected opportunity. I came across this campaign volunteering opportunity for a local candidate. Her name was Dr. Shine, and I remember going there thinking I was just going to do behind the scenes work. Now, during that event, one campaign team member asked if anyone would like to speak. I immediately raised my hand. I had no idea where that confidence came from, but as soon as I stepped on that stage and I started speaking, I felt this energy and this enthusiasm inside me. And to be honest, I had nothing prepared. I had no idea what I was going to talk about, and there was an audience of almost 100 adults. So I don't know why I wasn't scared in that moment. I was just sharing about issues I cared about and the importance of youth empowerment in my community. But when I stepped off that stage, I don't even know the right word to describe this feeling, but the best word I could use was I felt this spark within me. And that's really where the name is derived from for Spark Civics. I felt this urge of passion, and I came to realize that I wasn't just interested in public policy or service. I was passionate about advocacy and civic engagement. And through that self-discovery, I went a bit more deeper. I went into talking to legislators, students, attending civic forums, and really learning about what does this idea of civic engagement entail. And, through this process, I did face setbacks. I did face barriers. There were times where I definitely doubted my idea of technology policy. I've been very passionate about technology, and I've always asked questions at civic forums related to how can we legislate technology? How can we integrate it into public systems? And there were times where I came out of those forums feeling discouraged. I felt like maybe my ideas didn't belong here. But that's when, at one of my forums, something amazing happened. A few students came up to me and appreciated my question. They told me that they were wondering the exact same thing. And that's when I realized the problem. You see, the problem wasn't my idea, it wasn't my passion, but the problem was there wasn't a current pathway. It wasn't a clear pathway for technology, civic engagement, and specifically youth empowerment. And that wasn't something to be scared about, but that was something to solve. And that's really what formed the foundation of Spark Civics. So if we go on to the next slide, we can see from there, I started learning a bit more about different specific problems that were affecting youth civic engagement. You see, all of these students across the United States and across the world have really cool ideas. They're passionate about solving a lot of issues that are affecting their community, but they just don't know how to solve the issue. There aren't as many clear pathways in place, and there's also limited access to mentors mentors and hands-on opportunities that really makes civic engagement feel like an overwhelming process. But something also important to note is that we live in a digital world. Unfortunately, when you look at the public space, technology hasn't very much modernized civic engagement. Just going onto a legislature website, it can be super difficult to navigate what bills are active, what is the difference between all these different committees. And, through identifying these problems emerged one question. How can we empower every young person to transform their spark into action? And that's really what became the motto for Spark Civics. And if we go on to the next slide, you can see that's also reflected in our logo as well. It's a lot of hands reaching out for that idea together. But now that I kind of went over the motto, I'd like to also go a bit more deeper into the mission by going over our 5 sparks. Now, we are built specifically on the idea of integrating innovation and technology into youth civic engagement. But you might be wondering, why did I choose technology and innovation specifically? Well, like I mentioned before, we are living in a digital world. Much of the Gen Z population is accessing opportunities, accessing information via social media and apps. I mean, that's how I learned about the Youth Visionary Lab, just through a social media post. So technology is a great way to connect and reach the Gen Z community. But also, why innovation? Well, because I don't want the Gen Z to just interact with civic tools. I want them to design the tools. Because when they design the tools, they feel empowered that they can become the next generation of change makers and that they can have a voice in the community issues that are affecting them. So that's really what became the mission of Spark Civics. But I'd like to go a bit more in depth about the specific work we do at Spark Civics, starting with our civic innovation workshops. This year, if we go on to the next slide, Spark Civics launched about 2 civic innovation workshops. Each workshop was about 2-month-long program, and we partnered with 2 different organizations. One was with the school district in Minnesota, where we partnered and worked with middle school students. And then secondly, we partnered with a university professor, Dr. Josti, where we worked with both high school and middle school students across the country. Now, the output of these workshops was students creating their own civic apps that they were going to launch in their communities. We had 14 projects in total, and each of these apps solved a civic issue. On the next slide, you can see some specific examples. For the example, the first app is focused on financial management for young adults. The second app is focused on personalized educational resources for students. And the third app is focused on solving the limited access to robotics education. And through all of these apps, I would say the biggest win wasn't just the output. It wasn't just what students were able to create, but it was the design thinking process they went through. Here, you can see an example of an issue write-up assignment, where the student basically broke down their entire app, and they went through this design thinking process. They first identified the issue they'd like to solve, identified who's impacted by the issue in their community, the scale of the issue, and from there, one of the most meaningful things they did was figure out why that issue mattered to them. Why did they care about solving this issue? And by going through this design thinking process, they were able to design every feature with a purpose. And, when they integrate that purpose into their design, then they're truly serving their community. They're truly thinking in their community lens, and they're truly thinking in their user shoes. So that was really the biggest win we were able to achieve through the civic innovation workshops. Now, the next thing we did was civic innovation forums. So in total, we were able to launch 2 civic innovation forums with 4 legislator participants and 30 student participants. The reason behind these forums comes down to 2 main points. One is providing a platform and a space for students to directly engage with policymakers. And when they do so, they are able to voice their concerns and the issues they care about, which is empowering them as change makers. They get this feeling that they too, their voice too does matter, and that they're able to drive change in their community. But the second reason is when you directly connect legislators to students, legislators can now directly hear from the students in their community, hear about the issues that they care about, and then can reflect their voices in the actual policies that are being passed in our state. So that was really the 2 main takeaways from these forums. And a lot of our participants shared this one thing with us. They told us how before they attended this forum, they thought civic engagement was only one-time duty. It was only about voting. They never actually thought they could directly solve issues that are affecting their community. They never thought that they could be empowered to have a voice into the policy-making process. So that boost of confidence was a huge win, and we saw this within all of our participants. Even in our first forum, a lot of people who joined weren't initially interested in civic engagement. They just came because they thought it was a cool opportunity. But when they left that forum, they had this takeaway that no matter what profession they went into in the future, they could always create a community impact. So that was one of the biggest wins of the innovation forums. And finally, let's talk about the civic innovation toolkits. I was able to design about 100 civic innovation toolkits. Now, these toolkits included a 30-page civic innovation guide I authored, a resource sheet that allowed students to have technical resources for completing their projects, and then an advocacy book. In total, we were able to partner with 15 schools and libraries, both in the United States and in India, which is really amazing to have that international reach. And if you go on to the next slide, you can see that there are specific examples of the guide, which comes back to the purpose of this guide. So this guide is specifically focused on helping students launch their own civic tech projects. And what I mean by civic tech is I'm not just talking about apps. I'm talking about everything from podcasts, websites, blogs, social media advocacy, all of these different ways of using technology as a medium towards increasing civic engagement in their community. And these guides broke down the project step by step. And we followed this design thinking process called Spark, which basically helps students navigate all the way from identifying the issue to launching their project. So that was the biggest win of this toolkit. But let's also cover a bit more specifics about our accomplishments. First of all, we were able to raise about 2.6K outside of Global Girls Glow through partnering with our university professor and offering those workshops, which was very successful. And then secondly, we were able to secure 5 legislator liaisons. And what I mean by liaisons are legislators who support the mission of Spark Civics and are committed to advancing it in their policy-making processes. I also was able to present at Minibar. Minibar is one of the nation's largest and longest-running unconferences that is focused on technology. At my specific presentation, there were about 40 participants, and what was really amazing was that the audience was diverse. We had technology leaders, we had civic leaders, and we also had a few students. So it was really great to bring together all these different stakeholders into this common space and discuss about how each one of us in our role could advance civic innovation. Through our social media advocacy initiatives, we reached about 8.4K. Now we do want to expand our following base so we can create long-term connections. And then finally, I actively this year worked on legislation, and here are just a few of the successes I found. One was I drafted a Civic Innovation Day proclamation that is focused on advancing and celebrating civic innovation at my state, and will hopefully be passed in the coming days to be celebrated in August. And then finally, I also drafted a Civic Innovation Bill that is focused on recognizing student civic innovators in each district of my state, and I've already secured a chief author who's Senator Bolden. So we're really excited to see how this legislation plays out, especially since this legislation isn't about just recognizing student efforts. It's focused on creating a ripple effect for communities, because when students have that platform to share their work and they're spotlighted, other students will also get inspired to continue dedicating their time towards their community. So those are just a few of the accomplishments we had achieved through Spark Civics. And then moving on to the overall impact, right? In terms of the students, they were able to develop a lot of leadership, design thinking, and public speaking skills, because through our workshops, they don't just build apps. They design the apps. They go through this entire process. They learn everything from what does it take to create a meaningful app all the way to launching the app and convincing people to download the app and use the app. And they also just gained confidence as change makers. They felt like they could create an impact in their community. In terms of the community impact, I think it's really important to note that we were able to create spaces where all these different stakeholders connect: legislators, students, civic leaders, and then being able to collaborate between schools, the government, and community organizations really brought us together, and it really helped us work together on these different aspects of civic engagement. Also, through our social media advocacy, we did increase awareness about civic engagement and opportunities. And then finally, what I think is so amazing is that even though we just had 14 apps created, each of those apps are going to be launched in the students' communities. So not only are we impacting the students, we are directly impacting the communities as well because we are increasing the access to civic tools and infrastructure in those communities. For example, thinking about the robotics educational app, that's not just going to help the student create an app, right? It's going to help so many other students gain access to robotic opportunities and robotics education. So it's really cool to see how one project can reach at least 100 people in a community. So that was one of the most amazing impact we saw. But let's also take a look into what we're trying to achieve for the future. Now, I do have a team based in Minnesota. So we do have a few directors, interns, volunteers, but we'd also like to expand our operations specifically to other states. Even though we do donate our civic toolkits at an international scale, we'd like to have specific teams in states across the United States, which is why we've launched the National Ambassador Program and hope to expand this program so other students are also motivated to create change in their community. I'd like to also publish the guide I had authored so we can expand access to that and distribute them to about 100 schools and libraries across the world. Finally, I'd like to make our civic forums also on a monthly basis so we can keep consistency and then continue expanding our partnerships with civic organizations and schools internationally so we can better reach our community. And then also in terms of going further into our partnerships, I'd like to secure about 15 legislator liaisons who can continue advancing our efforts in civic engagement, and then finally, support about 50 civic innovation projects that can continue impacting communities across the U.S. and across the world. So that's really what I had to present today, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity. Thank you so much for everyone who came, and I hope you are also motivated to continue turning and transforming sparks into tangible action for our students across the world. If you'd like to stay connected with me, here's our Instagram handle for Spark Civics as well as our website. I think now is a great time for questions as well.
Thank you, Samhita. I'll just pause and see if anyone has any questions to add. I see a lot of applause going off. All right, I think we got one here. So Kylie said you're an inspiring entrepreneur and there's so much opportunity for expansion. What resources do you need to scale according to your plan?
I would say about 3 different resources. One is students. We want to reach more youth. We want to reach more students because this is not a one-job initiative, right? I don't like to think about Spark Civics as an organization. I like to think about it as a movement because we're trying to redesign this huge concept of civic engagement and there's so many stakeholders involved. So none of this will be possible without the support of youth and without the support of also legislators and educators, pretty much all the stakeholders. So, being able to connect with more students and more organizations will definitely help us scale. And then secondly, working with legislators, right? Because yes, as constituents, we do have this power to drive change, but it's not going to be possible without effective relationships with the government. So I think, meeting with more legislators will definitely help us expand our impact into policymaking. And then finally, I think also figuring out and continuing our fundraising initiatives. I think something we discovered that was really successful beyond just grants was offering courses with university faculty and other schools with a cost associated with it, because then that whatever funds we collect from that can go back towards the civic innovation toolkits. It can go back towards our workshops. So those are like the 3 ways we want to focus on our expansion.
All right, awesome. We have one more question from Brooke. This is probably all we have time for. She said, you have an amazing presence. What was the biggest hurdle you had to overcome when building out the programs, and how did you achieve your desired results? So in about 1 minute, can you try to answer this question?
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle would be believing in myself, because I think when you think about it, if you don't believe in yourself, you can't convince other people to believe in you. You can't convince other people to believe in your ideas. And like I mentioned, earlier in my story, I felt like this hesitation for my idea. I felt like my idea didn't even make sense. And I felt like it was too confusing. But I think just by boosting my confidence and understanding just because this pathway isn't in place doesn't mean I should be discouraged. It means that I should introduce this pathway. So, really being okay with stepping out of my comfort zone and stepping out of the box is something I had to definitely overcome as a hurdle to achieving this vision.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll pause and actually see if we have any more questions before we move on. All right. With that, thank you, Samhita, for sharing everything about your project. We really appreciate hearing all of you done. I'm excited now to introduce our second speaker, Isabella. Isabella is a 17-year-old high school rising senior from Florida. When she first immigrated from Venezuela to the US at the age of 14, she didn't speak any English. Understanding the challenges immigrant students faced, she focused her Youth Visionary Lab project on building an educational program that supports Spanish-speaking students navigating that exact same transition. Additionally, she's writing a book about her own journey to highlight the realities of the immigrant experience. Today, she combines her personal storytelling with her educational resources to give new students the support she wishes she had. Please welcome Isabella.
Hi everyone, my name is Isabella, like Laura said. And first of all, I want to say that I'm very grateful for the Youth Visionary Lab. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And all the things I achieved, all the projects that I was able to, it was an idea that I had and that I was able to put it in action. I wasn't going to be possible without the Global Glow Girls and because of Laura as well. So now let's start with my projects. I actually did two projects through the Youth Visionary Lab. One of them is a book that I wrote called the Girl Who Crossed Mountains, and the other one is a nonprofit that I have that started as an educational program called Camino al Futuro. Both of these projects are deeply connected because they were inspired by my own immigration journey and the experiences of so many immigrants around me. I think both of these projects are connected to immigration because as an immigrant myself, learning English from scratch was very difficult, and I was able to overcome all the challenges, and now I want to help other students to do the same. So let's start with Camino al Futuro, my nonprofit. Before I tell you the solution, I want to explain the problem. Let's go to the next slide. So every year, thousands of immigrant and ESOL students enter schools across the United States with incredible potential. However, many of them don't receive the guidance they need in order to succeed because they don't know how the educational system works. And the reality is that the educational system in the United States is very difficult as a student, especially as an immigrant student. Many students don't know about graduation requirements, what classes should they take, college opportunities, scholarships, volunteer hours, or leadership programs or opportunities. Without early guidance, some students reach their senior year realizing that they are missing important requirements or opportunities that could have changed their future. On top of that, the language barrier makes it difficult for them to communicate with schools or access information that is only available in English. And the reality is that the only reason I was able to put all of this and to create all the leadership opportunities that I have created is because I learned English in less than 2 years. But many of the ESOL students are not able to do that. So that is why for me it's very important to give them the motivation they need in order to succeed. The problem isn't that the students lack motivation or talent. It is that simply they don't have the access to information that they deserve. And that is why I created Camino al Futuro. So now I'm going to explain what Camino al Futuro is. Camino al Futuro is an initiative that started as an educational program and now is becoming a nonprofit. It is dedicated to empower ESOL students as they adapt to their lives in the United States. Through educational resources, mentorship workshops, and community support, we help students better understand the school system, discover opportunities, and gain confidence in their future. The goal is simple, to make sure that no immigrant student has to navigate this journey alone. Because as an immigrant student, I had to also be in the ESOL program, and for me, it was very difficult to understand how everything worked. I wanted to be part of clubs, I wanted to be part of extracurriculars, but I didn't have the access to the information that explained all of these things. So although I was able to do it after I learned English and I became to have opportunities for trips and scholarships, I really wanted to help the students to do the same. During our first year, we have already accomplished more than I ever imagined. We created over 50 pages of educational resources covering topics that many students never learn in school. And we have directly supported more than 35 ESOL students, and we are going to support even more the next school year when we expand our educational program to more schools. We also organized a successful parent night with over 50 attendees, including one special guest from the ESOL district. And we also received a grant that is going to go for future expenses. And we also collaborated and partnered with Hispanic Unity to connect with families with additional community resources. Although these numbers may seem a little bit small right now, behind every number is a student who now understands opportunities that they didn't know existed before. And now we are able to help a lot of students in the future, and we'll have a lot of goals to make this program even bigger. So now let's go to the third slide. I would like to talk about a little bit about the educational resources. One of our biggest focuses has been creating educational resources that answer the questions immigrant students face every day. After going to ESOL classes and asking ESOL students directly what they need and what they want to understand, of course, sorry if I'm speaking a little bit fast. After going to ESOL classes, I asked questions to the ESOL students. And according to what they answered, I created educational resources with my co-founder. And this is what we did. Community service, hours and volunteering, community college versus university, local opportunities to earn community hours, how to take virtual classes and benefits, how to retake classes and improve your grades, type of classes during high school, and much more. We were able to have meetings and mentorship calls. We were able to make resources and to answer questions at every meeting to help the students understand how the system works. So basically, if you're not a student, it's very hard to understand how this works because there are so many things you have to do in order to go to college. And like I said, when I was in ESOL classes, the ESOL classes, in case you don't know, they are meant for you to learn English, basic English, but they don't teach you all of those things. And also, at least in my school, they oh my god, wait. The teachers, the counselors, that's the word I was trying to find. They don't speak Spanish. So you may have a lot of questions, but when you go to their office, they're not going to be able to help you as much as they want. This is why I really wanted to do something related to immigration and to empowering ESOL students. On the next slide, I'm going to talk about some of the resources examples. Here are just some of the examples of the educational resources we created. Each guide was designed to be simple, visual, and easy to understand. Many were translated into Spanish so families could understand them as well. And our goal wasn't just to give students information, it was to make information accessible, because when students understand the system, they become more confident in making the decisions that they want for their future. Some of the meetings we had were Kahoot meetings where we would do a Kahoot, give prizes, and this one for example, was about college. We also did the resources about type of classes, and students were able to ask questions and to understand how everything worked. On the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the story behind Camino al Futuro and my personal story. Like I said, I arrived in the United States in 2023 without speaking English. And after 2 years being in the ESOL program, I was finally able to speak the language. After learning the language, I got to be part of some leadership opportunities like Key Club, National Honor Society, Spanish Honor Society, and I met many students who have been in the US for more years than me and never learned English or learned these opportunities. So I decided that it was very important for me to use my knowledge and expand it to other schools and to other young children and young immigrants. Founding Camino al Futuro, my goal was to, as low out to cut the gap between empowering immigrant students, and I also wanted to help them succeed academically and personally, inspired by my own experience as a high school student. I didn't speak English, everything was unfamiliar, my school, the language, the culture, and the educational system. And like many students, I felt overwhelmed. Over the 2 years, I worked hard to learn English and became part of my school's extracurriculars. And as I became more involved, I discovered all the opportunities that there are in this country. Because in Venezuela and in most of the South American countries, it's only about academics, but there are no trips or there are not scholarships, there are no opportunities to do community hours. But however, in this country, it's very different. That is why most of the immigrant students don't even go to college, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how to apply. Through these resources, I was able to help them So most of our students are now taking online classes. Some of them did volunteering over the summer, and it was a very grateful thing that I did because I really wanted to use my knowledge to do a positive change in our schools. Some were already seniors, and they didn't realize all of the things that they missed because they were already in the last year. And most of the counselors don't reach to the immigrant students until it's too late. That is why I think Camino al Futuro was an initiative that was very necessary in order for those students to succeed. And like I said, so far we already helped 35 students, and we are going to continue helping way more students in the future by partnering with other schools and doing more resources, even expanding our resources in many different languages. In the next slide, I'm going to talk about the future goals and vision for this initiative, nonprofit. So one of the things we want to do is visit schools to host workshops and connect ESOL students with valuable resources and opportunities by contacting principals and advisors as well. The main reason I was able to do this initiative was because of our Spanish advisor or our Spanish teacher, which is Miss Espinosa, and she was able to support us in every way. And that is why I want to do the same thing in the future. I want to contact teachers. I want to contact schools, and I want to explain to them how important it is for ESOL students and immigrant students to understand how the system works. We also want to expand our collection of educational resources, translate it into more languages, and create career guides to expand our team. So far, we only have a vice president or a co-founder, which is my co-founder, and we have Miss Espinosa as well. But in the future, if we have more students who are welcome to help us, that would be great to continue this initiative. And to continue this initiative in my school, we will still getting support from my school, from Hispanic Unity as well. And I plan to continue this initiative even after I graduate by also being partnered with the schools and create resources in the future. We also have an Instagram account, and I am very glad we have one because through that initial Instagram account, we were able to share the resources. I was able to share them with other students, even from outside of the US, that I met in a program I did. And definitely that was a great initiative. I was able to see the students, to see them, ask them questions. And if you see the pictures right here, these are pictures from our parent night. We even made shirts for them, and the shirts have the logo of our program. That is my co-founder right there. And as you can see in the picture in the bottom, we had those over 50 attendees in our parent night. And the picture right there in the front, that is one of the meetings we had where we were discussing probably kind of classes during high school. And in every meeting, we had food provided, we have drinks. And that was not only a space for them to ask questions and to learn about things about the American system, but also for them to feel connected with other students. We usually would do icebreakers. So a lot of the students had the opportunity to feel in a family because although there is the ESOL program, having a space after school for them to connect with other people and of course to ask more questions and to feel inspired by other students was a very important thing for me to do. I think that's pretty much it for our program. I think it was a great initiative to do. I was so glad I did it. After becoming president of Key Club and going to trips outside of my state and meeting other incredible young leaders from around the nation, I really felt inspired, and the Youth Visionary Lab helped me to make this vision possible. So I am very grateful, and in the future, I'm going to continue doing these resources and empowering young immigrants because I only have been in the US for 3 years, and I was able to learn the language. So I want to be an example of how important it is to be confident in yourself. I want to be an example of resilience and how important it is to trust in your visions and your goals. So I think that's it for my nonprofit because I have another project I want to talk about. And at the end, I just want to say thank you to our leadership team. Sarai, she was the co-founder of this great initiative. And of course, Monica Espinosa, she was our advisor or sponsor for this nonprofit. She was always there at the meetings. She would usually help us by communicating more important information as a teacher, and she's going to continue supporting us in the future. I really want to thank her because none of this would have been possible without her. And now, with the rest of the time I have, I would like to talk about the second project I've been working on, which is actually a book. The Girl from the Mountains, I think actually is The Girl Who Crossed Mountains, but it's basically a student's memoir of my story leaving Venezuela and chasing the American dream. And you may think, you're still in high school, why would you write a book? But actually, as an immigrant student, I think it's very important to raise awareness about what immigration looks like. And as someone who learned English in only 2 years, I really want to share my perspective and how important it is to put yourself in other people's shoes. And that was the main idea for this book. So let's go to the next slide. The Girl Who Crossed Mountains. This memoir book shares my experience as an immigrant, including the situation in Venezuela. Because as you know, Venezuela is going through a very difficult crisis, and the impact was insane. I remember that not only had to learn a language from zero, but also I went from living in a mountain because I was living in a rural place in Venezuela to living for the first time in my life in a city. So that was a completely different perspective, a very difficult situation I was putting myself into. And we did it because my family had a dream, my family had goals, and that was our only opportunity to do that. When I was started writing the book, I didn't thought I was going to finish it. However, I did because of the great support I got from the Youth Visionary Lab. This project was created with professional help and support. So far, I have wrote over 30,000 words in my book. I have 9 chapters looking to demonstrate the hardships of being an immigrant, and the publication date is going to be in the month of September. This book shares a lot of my experiences, like from going to school for the first time in my life in a different language, to just feeling like I didn't belong in the US. I was inspired by other immigrant students as well, by other teachers, and how hard it is to be an immigrant, no matter from where you're coming from or how much experience you have in the language. It's always hard to leave everything you worked so hard for behind, not knowing what's going to come ahead. So I'm glad I wrote this book, and I just want to raise awareness about how important it is to be mindful about others. Um, go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the story behind this book is very simple. I'm an immigrant, and I really wanted to write this book as long as I can remember. I mean, as long as I stepped into the country and saw all the hardships of being an immigrant, I said I have to write a book about this. The problem is that I didn't speak English, and I wanted to do it in English so other people can see how it goes. So after I learned English and I took an AP class in my school, I was able to finally write this book. And as an immigrant, I have met other immigrants in the US who also have important stories, who also have experiences that, in my opinion, are worth telling for. So I was able to tell their stories as well. This book shares my story from Venezuela to the United States while reflecting from a teenager's perspective, how hard it is immigration, how hard it is to feel like you don't belong, to adapt to a new language, a new culture. And although I am not a professional writer, it was a very fulfilling experience to write a book from scratch. And the fact that it's going to get published on September, for me, I'm just very grateful for all the opportunities I had to write this book. The purpose of this book also is this book is going to go to educators as well, because I know that a lot of counselors and teachers around the nation probably had ASOL students in the past, and most of the time they don't understand how to work with them. They don't understand what they are not working, and it's hard. Of course, it's hard. So this book seeks to explain what immigration is and help them to understand those kind of students. Through my experience moving from a mountain to a city, it highlights the resilience, courage, and determination it takes to adapt to a new life. Because for me, the first time I used a computer in my life was when I became a student in the United States. So I didn't know how to use Canva or how to do PowerPoint. I didn't know how to do my assignments. It took me 4 months to understand how to use my computer. So it was very hard. and doing everything from scratch. But I was determined. I remember the summer of my sophomore year, I would Google how does this work and how to get into college, and I would see the subtitles. And I think all of those little experiences inspired me to write a book because I think it's very important to acknowledge how much resilience and hard work it takes, not only to be an immigrant, but to have a goal and to see and to feel like everything is against you. Next slide, please. So now future goals and expectations for this book. Like I said, I'm going to publish the book on September, and it's going to be available for readers in local libraries as well. I think we're going to have an online option and also an option for readers to buy it, and I think they can get a physical form as well. But I'm going to be sharing more information about this in the future. It shares my story as an immigrant, but also more stories about other immigrants that I have met. So all I want to do is to raise awareness about young people and how amazing young people can be if they are inspired, and also provide teachers with a resource to help them better understand the experience and the challenges faced by immigrant students. So this is all for both of my projects. I'm going to provide a QR code of our Instagram, Camino al Futuro. This is the Instagram of our nonprofit, so please follow it. I haven't posted the pictures yet of our parent night, but I'm going to post them soon. And once we start visiting other schools, I'm going to post those pictures as well. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. And if you are interested in buying my book as well, it's going to be available this year. So just contact me, or you have the Instagram right here. Thank you, Laura. She was an amazing leader and the biggest support I had through this journey. And of course, the Youth Visionary Lab was one of the greatest opportunities I had as a high school student.
Thank you, Isabella. Amazing. It looks like we have a couple questions for you. So we have the first one here in the chat. They said, I love your infectious energy to serve others who are facing challenges that you understand from your lived experience. It's no wonder that you speak so quickly and articulately. How did you make students aware of, or in other words, how do you market the service of Camino al Futuro so you can expand the benefits to many immigrant students?
Okay, so thank you for the question. First of all, I speak a little bit fast, and I do it both in English and Spanish. So sorry about that. I think that's the biggest issue I have when doing public speaking. But one of my biggest goals with Camino al Futuro is, like I said, visiting schools. One of my biggest the biggest experience I had funding this nonprofit was actually talking to ESOL students, getting to meet them and answer questions. So I really want to do the same thing in the future, even if I'm in college. I'm going to continue doing mentorship resources. Maybe I'm going to expand these resources and mentorship to calls, maybe webinars and Zoom, or of course the resources I'm going to make. One of the biggest goals I have is to expand them in other languages as well. But I think a lot of ESOL students have so many potential to be great, to go to Ivy Leagues in everything. Some of the ESOL students that were in my program, they had to take a bus to go home because their parents had to work very late. So this is only for you to see how important it is for them to feel inspired and to feel like their voices are being heard. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Isabella.
Any other questions?
I think that's all we have time for now. So I just want to say thank you both so much for your hard work and dedication this year. I was so impressed by your passion and creativity, and I'm so proud of both of you. Now I'm going to turn it over to our Director of U.S. Programs, Danielle Carlos.
Thank you, Laura. And I want to echo Laura really quickly and just say, Samhita and Isabella, I have been in awe hearing about your projects from Laura as you've been going through them. But it was also just an absolute joy hearing you present about them today. We are so proud of you and grateful that you chose to partner with Glow to get these projects off the ground. Your leadership is truly an inspiration to all of us. And I think we can see that in our participant comments in the chat as well. So as you've heard in those incredible presentations, the Youth Visionary Lab program really demonstrated that when girls are given the opportunity and the right support, they can create really meaningful change in their communities. And that is why Glow is taking the idea of Youth Visionary Lab and adapting it into a club model that can be implemented in schools and organizations across the country, allowing us to reach more girls with this same type of programming, specifically in under-resourced communities. So we're so excited to launch this new US Glow Clubs pilot program this fall. This student-led and project-based club brings together small groups of girls, 4 to 10 girls in 6th through 12th grade for 20 sessions where they build real agency and collective power, designing and executing a project to address an issue they care about in their school or community, just like Isabella and Smita did. In these clubs, girls are not just learning about leadership, but they're actually getting to step into those leadership roles, using their voice, making decisions, taking action, and seeing the direct impact of that, gaining the confidence and skills to navigate real challenges and influence the world around them. For our partners in this pilot program, we can provide a full curriculum with structured, ready to use session agendas, implementation support and resources, onboarding and continued support for the adult mentors, opportunities for the girls to engage directly with us at Global Girls Glow, and then $3,000 in funding for each club. If you have any questions, we'll drop a flyer with more information in the chat. But super excited to share that by this time next year, girls in at least 18 Glow clubs across the US will have created impact in their communities. And that all started right here with the Youth Visionary Lab.
Thank you, Danielle. We are so excited about the new US Glow Clubs. And yes, I will just again echo our incredible thanks to Isabella and Samhita. You are both so inspiring, so well spoken. Your projects were thoughtful and executed with just incredible leadership and impact. We really, really are proud of what you have accomplished and cannot wait to see what the future holds. And Danielle is very, very right that the successes we see with Isabella and Samhita in the Youth Visionary Lab lays the groundwork for more girls across the country to access mentorship and advocacy expertise in our new US Glow Clubs. 1 year from now, save the date, join us again. Next summer, we will have so many stories to share from these new Glow Clubs across the country and the girls who are tackling issues in their own communities. And we know we'll be implementing transformative solutions, just like Isabella and Samhita have done. Now, this work cannot happen without your support. It is my honor, truly, to invite you to join us by making a gift to the Built by Girls project. This is our campaign to raise $140,000, allowing Global Girls Glow to scale from 3 girls in the Youth Visionary Lab to over 100 US girls in these girl-led Glow Clubs who are ready to speak up, lead change, develop actionable solutions to the issues that surround them. Specifically, the $140,000 we raise will fund all the Glow Clubs themselves. So the mentorship, supplies, snacks, t-shirt, everything girls need to learn about their agency, their voice, and their power. This also will fund updates to the Glow Club curriculum, specifically to include advocacy tools and training, and a culminating summit where Glow girls can showcase their advocacy projects to each other. This also funds support and strategy for our measuring, evaluation, and learning team to help provide girls with tools to assess their project outcomes. And as Danielle mentioned, dedicated funds for the projects. We want to make sure the girls don't only have the space to design these ideas, but to bring them into life and to implement them in their communities. If you would like to become a part of this movement today, you can make a gift at globalgirlsglow.org/builtbygirls. The link is in the chat. You can use this QR code. If you have any questions about Global Girls Glow, our US Glow Clubs, the girls we serve, please do not hesitate to reach out. I know for many of you, we have been in conversation about Global Girls Glow, but for some of you, this is your first introduction to our organization. So I hope this is not the only opportunity you have to meet us and to learn about our work. My email address is in the chat. I would love to hear from you. As I said at the beginning, there's nothing I love more than talking about girls and the amazing things they are doing. I'm so glad you were able to be here with us today. So we'll stick around for a few minutes. If you have any other closing thoughts or comments in the chat, feel free to share them. Just Again, thank you to Isabella and Samhita. We know that their impact will only grow from here. We hope you two stay in touch with us. We also hope this isn't the only time we get to hear from you. And just, yeah, thank you all.